Hello and welcome back to our favourite river, the River Tees. Fabulous river this. It's a blustery, cool day and we're going to be looking at different techniques that we can employ on these blustery, cool days. Essentially nymphing techniques, because we haven't seen any fish rise. So basically we're going to use nymphing techniques. We're going to compare and contrast two methods of nymphing. This method of nymphing is on my shade straight line with the furled leader and a little Orvis stick-on indicator is indicator nymphing, upstream indicator nymphing, and I've got two small nymphs on. I've got an on-stream guide hotspot pheasant tail on the point and a small wiggle nymph, as I call it, on the dropper. And basically I'm going to fish this upstream into the little current seams where I think there might be a fish or two hiding out, and obviously it's all about watching that indicator, and when I see it dip or dart I lift the rod and hopefully will be attached to a fish or two. Alternatively, another form of indicating is what's often referred to as a European style nymphing or Czech nymphing. So you'll also hear it referred to as Polish nymphing. In this Czech nymphing setup, which I've got on the rod at the moment, it's a 10-foot 2-weight rod, 3-weight rod, so it's very, very light, tactile, and I've got an on-stream guide nymphing leader on. This is attached directly to backing. It's around 45 feet long. It's attached directly to backing, and there's no fly line used in this technique. The fly line in this technique acts as a dampener and that therefore reduces the sensitivity. It's a 3-fly setup and the weight of the flies are critical, and we weight the flies in modern forms of this fly fishing by using tungsten beads. On the point I have a polyphytus that's available at the website onstreamguide.com, which is a 3mm gold fly, and it represents basically case caddis living on the bottom of the river. And I use this because of the inverted aspect. The pin is mounted on a hook and inverted, and because of the inverted aspect and the way it fishes, more so than a jig hook, it's a very good point fly for Czech nymphing. On the dropper I have a flashback caddis, which is a great catching fly, and on the point I've got an emerger style fly. In this case it's the plover nymph. All these flies are available at onstreamguide.com, and that represents a fly that might be in the process, a mayfly that might be in the process of emergence. So there's two contrasting nymphing techniques. With the Czech style nymphing technique, it's contact nymphing, it's short line, I'm in contact with the nymphs, I'm looking for any dip of that inline indicator. And with the indicator method I'm fishing upstream and I'm watching the indicator, watching for any deviation. So let's give it a try right now. Now, often water like the water I'm in, which is only knee deep, is often ignored by many anglers who make the false assumption that the bigger fish will be in the deeper pools, but it's not necessarily the case. These small pockets like this one can hold very good numbers of fish and also good size of fish. So I'm looking at the current seams along which where I think there might be a fish, and dropping the indicator in that zone, watching the indicator like a hawk, mending upstream if I have to stop the indicator dragging. Oh, and there we go, that was a little take. So that's an upstream mend to stop the indicator dragging. Oh, and that was another little take. So there's definitely fish in that area, and you see an indication of the speed of these fish. They're very, very fast. Onto the fly and reject it very quickly. I'm in very fast lip of water here, and unless there's a big hatch going on and fish are moving into the fast current, they're likely to be just off the main current. There's a rock at the head of this pool, and it's creating a nice current seam along here, and I believe that the fish will concentrate along this current seam, so it naturally acts to concentrate the natural food items. So it's a good place to target our nymphs when we're nymph fishing. We're keeping it on a relatively short line, fishing upstream. Try and keep the indicator drag free all the time. Always try the water close by as well. There we go, that was a good take. That take screamed off. A happy little trout on the pheasant tail nymph. So it indicates just how this indicator, upstream indicator method works. Beautiful little brownie. Marvellous hook, of course, just popped straight out. Beautiful little fish, and there'll be more than him in here, so we'll keep going. There we go. Oh, very fast take. Another beautiful small wild fish. Sitting behind the rock. Often in rivers like this, fish will sit behind these rocks, waiting for the nymphs. And this check nymph technique is all about keeping control of the flies. It's a little bit breezy today, and it's certainly the enemy of the check nymph fisherman, the wind, and the fly fisher in general. So it makes that keeping control that little bit trickier. But the essence is I'm just staying on top of the flies, letting them fish near the bottom of the river. The point fly is, the polyphytus fly is moving along the bed of the river, and if there's any interception of the flies, then the indicator will stop or it will dip, and I will react accordingly. There we go. That's a nice fish on the check nymphs. That's a big grayling. Nice big fish. That took the polyphytus nymph on the point. Big, beautiful grayling. There's fast current. Tend to use their fins as sails and pull themselves against the current in the river. Beautiful big fish. Nice big grayling this. And it's safely in the net. So we'll have a quick look at him and get him back. And that took the polyphytus, which is available at onstreamguide.com. It's a great point fly on a check nymph or a French nymphing rig. Supreme fly. Always catches fish and has done for many years and continues to do so. Have a quick look at this beautiful grayling and we'll get him back. So we see the check nymph technique worked after the more superficial upstream technique under the indicator, which only got a couple of small fish, small trout. Going deeper and slower proved more effective catching these more substantial fish like this grayling. It's a beautiful, beautiful fish, this. Nice fish. And that hook, it's just in the scissors if he'd stand still. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful little grayling. Nice sized grayling. And wants to be back. And off he goes. It's a male, very quickly. Beautiful fish. So we'll have where there's one grayling, there's often more. It's a quiet day, as I said before, but by resorting to the nymphing techniques, and specifically the check nymphing technique, we're able to catch quality fish like that. Let's see if there's any more. We keep taking a step. It's important that we move, that we're fishing new water, and because we're fishing for both trout and grayling, we're fishing upstream. If it was winter, we tend to fish downstream, as the grayling are far more forgiving of our presence in the river than the trout. And I've got two 3mm beaded flies, and they're bouncing along the bottom perfectly. And I can alter the weight. I can add a 4mm beaded flies, which will slow down, but will probably result in the flies snagging the bottom more. So the trick is just to get the balance of the flies right. They need to be weighted enough to reach the bottom quickly and to fish slowly along the bottom. Now let's see if we can be rewarded with a fish. It's a good looking little bit of water up ahead of me. There should be fish in here. It's a nice depth. The depth and the pace are critical when we're doing this check nymph technique. The depth should be at least 2.5 feet deep, and we need current as well. That it should be fishing through. We should be moving through at a fair pace. And track that indicator down, watch it like a hawk, watch for any deviation that might indicate a rising fish, taking fish. The flies look good. And when we check nymph, we dissect the drift, meaning we fish both the upper section of the drift and the lower section of the drift. So what I'm aiming to do is to get the flies around 45-degree angle upstream, track them down by slowly lifting the rod, but not actually trying to interfere with their flow in any way, maintaining contact with the nymphs, because essentially this is contact nymphing. These forms of French nymphing, Czech nymphing, Polish nymphing are all contact nymphing. So we're using rather generally weighted nymphs, usually with tungsten beads, though we can use the purpose-made Czech nymphs. And we maintain contact with those nymphs, and if there's a deviation like there was there, then we lift, and if we're fortunate enough, we might be gifted with a nice fish. And there we go, that's another fish, and that feels like another big grayling. And the trick I was doing there, just about to explain, was just letting the nymphs lift at the end of the drift, and very often as the nymphs lift on the end of a drift like that, that's when you'll get a solid take, which is exactly what happened there. Feels like a big grayling again. I feel that solid pull in that fast water. Indicates that a nice grayling's taken the fly, and that took on the lift. That's taken the flashback caddis on the middle dropper, which is often the fishing fly, the fly that's doing the work on these nymph rigs. The polyphytus caught the previous fish just 2 or 3 minutes ago. And there we see that beautiful grayling. Now if I can, I won't even, this one's a female, I won't even net her out of the water. I'll keep her in the water or close to the water. Beautiful, beautiful fish. And there she goes, straight back. Always minimize contact with grayling as much as possible because they are quite delicate, though very beautiful fish. So there we go, 2 fish very quickly on the check nymphs. Beautiful big fish. But today is about trying a variety of river techniques and seeing the differences. So we tried 2 forms of nymphing. The check nymphs, which are the heavy nymphs which fish slower, closer to the bottom. It's a contact form of nymphing. And then we fished smaller nymphs under an indicator. This is more an American style of fishing, and fished them upstream. And you can see the contrast there straight away with the upstream nymphing method under the indicator. We only caught small trout, but when we slowed the nymphs down, we caught substantially better fish, bigger grayling. So both techniques worked, and both even in the same type, even in the same water, both techniques work, but in a subtly different way. The contact nymphs are fished slower, they're under the rod tip, the check nymph style, and the indicator nymphs are fished more quickly in the faster current. Now there's some nice water up ahead, so let's go and find some more water. There's a rise right near the fly. It went for a dry fly on the top, a decent rise. So what I'm going to do is put on a dry fly, see if we can catch that fish. Look like a nice trout. Because this is just a stick-on indicator, comes off very readily, no problem at all. And then I'll quickly nip off the nymphs and tie a dry fly on, and hopefully we'll get that fish to rise to the dry fly. And the dry fly I'll be using is the soft hackle dry fly. It's a great little dry fly. So even on a day like today where it's a bit blustery and a bit cool, if you see a fish move, it looks to be a good fish like that one did, it's always worth trying a dry fly pattern. And I'll illustrate this pattern later. It's the soft hackle dry fly. You've seen me use it before to great effect. It's a stunning little fly. All I'll do with this dry fly is just add a little bit of gink to the body and the legs. And there's the odd fly just starting to come off, a few smaller yellow fly, and the odd pale watery small mayfly amongst them, olive. So I'm quite satisfied with that. Let's see what we can do. And of course the furled leader here will greatly aid the presentation. And there, oh, a fish came for the fly. First cast, came for that fly, and I completely was a little off guard and I missed him. Oh, there we go. That time it made certain. That soft hackle dry fools the fish yet again. That's a nice trout, lovely trout. So when the fish are looking up, beautiful little trout, off he goes like a flash. Right, now there's always a chance of more than one fish in that area, so keep the dry fly on, and I did see one rise a little further up there. See if we can catch any more. Seems that they're quite keen and they are looking up. There we go, that was very fast on the dry fly. So the fish are looking up in these skinny pockets. So fishing quite skinny water on the dry now, and we're catching these beautifully conditioned little wild trout like this one, beautifully marked fish. Now, as well as using the nymphs in the pools further downstream on the dry fly rod, the indicator nymphs and the check nymphs, we can also present a nymph using a Tenkara rod, and that gives us a special advantage if I'm in places where I am now, where I've got very fast current in small pockets and little holes inside this fast current. Now the Tenkara allows me to exploit the small holes in these pockets where fish might be lying up. And here's a classic example. There's a nice little spot of dead water under this sycamore tree, and the Tenkara gives me opportunity to get the fly there, and the fly I'm using as a dry fly is the On-Stream Guide Life Jacket LK Caddis, very buoyant dry fly designed for this technique, and the nymph about 2 foot underneath that is the hotspot nymph, and I'm presenting this on a unique 2-stage furred leader, and that's going to be on the site soon. And it gives me excellent opportunity to present this fly in these dead spots under the trees. Put the nymph on this Tenkara outfit is behind this rock in this current seam above me, and this type of pool is ideal for the Tenkara because we have very fast current on our near side line, and that normally would create big problems with a Western style outfit, fly outfit, with drag. But using the Tenkara, I'll be able to hold the flies into the main seam, the main current seam there, drag free, and get a really good advantage with the presentation. So we've caught so far on the nymphs, on the check nymphs, in the big pools, and on the upstream nymphs under the indicator, and on the dry fly in the pockets. And so we're going to finish hopefully with a fish on Tenkara. Now this Tenkara outfit will be available on On-Stream Guide, the rod and the leader system. It's a unique leader system, so it's a 2-stage leader furred leader system, and we can actually change the length. So at the moment it casts beautifully, presents the fly beautifully, but at the moment I've got the 7-foot leader section on, but if I needed more control or to fish shorter, I can drop that to a 5-foot. So it's a 2-stage furred leader system, and it works very effectively. There we go. Oh, that's a nice fish. Came out and grabbed that LK Caddis dry. So today we've had sport on all these methods, including the Tenkara. And that fish came out and grabbed that dry fly in that pocket. That's a beautiful, nice trout. And the advantage of Tenkara is that it enabled us to get a good cover on that fish, and it's fairly unlikely that we'd have been able to achieve that cover with any other technique. Now I just have to carefully remove the line from this fish. Oh, and there he goes, he wants to go. I don't want to hurt him, but off he goes. Beautiful fish. So the Tenkara allowed me to get the fly over that fast current into that pocket on the far side, and we were rewarded very quickly with that nice trout. So today we've used a variety of techniques. It's a blustery day, tough. We've used the upstream nymphs under the indicator, had a couple of fish on that. We tried the check nymphs, the contact nymphing, had a couple of fish on that, and then we've used the Tenkara in the pockets. It's only a couple of hour session, but we thoroughly enjoyed ourselves despite the tough conditions and caught a few fish. All these techniques are available at onstreamguide.com if you want to check out or do some research on the techniques that we've been using today. And of course, all the flies and the furled leaders are also available on the website. Hope you've enjoyed it. Bye for now.